Hello, and thank you for joining Podcast 572 once again. As always, I'm your host, Kyle. This week, I'm only joined by Dan. We're just going to say Matt is out on assignment this week. He will be back with us next time we record. As always, we got a shit ton of emails. We have a lot of news. The news and the emails are kind of coinciding, so we kind of had to move some things around. So if you listen to this podcast, you get to the news section, you're like, wow, they're not talking about that big story. Rest assured, we're talking about it in the email section. So
yeah,
we're going to start, as we always do, with what we've been playing. I can go on and heavily speak on Saints Row now that I've played Saints Row to completion. In terms of the story
completion, yeah.
In terms of 100%ing it, that's not going to happen, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it right now, actually. So, Saints Row, the best thing I can say, even from last week to this week, is honestly, even at $30, I can't recommend it. Maybe they will patch and fix some of the issues, but I actually encountered a game-breaking bug. It is a game-breaking bug that is well known in the game after I did some research. Basically, what it is I was going for, there's like a collectible where you can take pictures of different historical things around the city.
Okay.
And so you can get to a point where one of them just won't register. Like, you keep taking the picture, it does not come off the list. The thing that's weird about this glitch,
like you took the picture, but like
no. It acts like you've never taken a picture. Here's the problem from what I looked up. It doesn't affect a specific one.
Oh,
it can affect any of them. Yeah. Because there are reports out there where like, hey, I did 98 of these or whatever, but this one isn't working. And then the next person on the Reddit poster is like, that's weird because I did it this way and it's a completely different one. And so it's all over this Reddit post that I'm like, at that point, I was like, fuck this game. And it's over. So the story never gets any better. I'd argue it got worse at the end.
Okay.
And as I said before, when we would get to I would speak more to it the next time I record because I probably would have finished by then, which I have. They don't have any mentions of the previous Saints Row at all. There's a couple murals that you'll see that maybe have like what was the wrestler dude from like Saints Row 3? There's a mural that has that guy on it, like in the city or something. It's stuff like that, but there's no like actual mentions of any previous characters or like anything. None of the weapons. Now that I'm at the end of the game, like there's no cool fucking weapons. Like nothing outrageous like the Saints Row series is known for. They're all just very generic, like your assault rifle, machine gun, your shotgun, pistol, like that's all it is. And like variations of those, that's kind of it.
How long did it take for you to finish the story?
The story took me about 18 hours, I think. So there's some meat to it, but I'll also say like it ended to me. I didn't know I was doing the final mission until it kind of made itself known towards the end. I'm like, this kind of seems like this might be the end of this game. Cause you kind of fight the main, I'd say what's the main bad person.
Sure.
And I'm like, it seems like maybe this is where they're going to end this story. It's where they end the story. So the other thing I think that is stupid is like, so I spoke last time we talked about the game, like how I think that part of the problem with the characters are like, none of them are very fleshed out. There's one, the Michelle Rodriguez chick. She could have been fleshed out because they have a whole backstory with her where she has this car that her mom gave her. That's like her special like racing car. That's her getaway car. Right.
Okay.
And then when she decides I'm not going to be in this other gang anymore because I'm in this one, that bad dude from that runs that gang fucking just pushes her car off a cliff and blows it up. And they make this big dramatic scene. And I was like, okay, so they're going to tell like a side story. They never go back to this.
They never talk about it.
There's no side mission about it. Yeah. Like she literally just gets another car and it's like, whatever. I'm like, nah, you don't build up like that kind of like attention to that specific. And then just be like, but anyways. And it just kind of further for me, it was like, they probably rushed this game because I'm sure they planned to do something with it. And then we're just like, we have to get it out. So, but yeah,
if they said if there's going to be any kind of like DLC or anything for it?
No, they have only put out one tweet since this game came out, which basically just said, hey, we're sorry. There's a lot of bugs. We're working on it. And that's it. They haven't talked about any post-release stuff, which the game is in such dire straits. You can't really talk about that until you fix the game.
You think that's going to be the kind of thing where they just don't talk about it and eventually they'll do like a patch and then that's kind of
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But like, I'll check in like with it in terms of the patch, but like even then, and that was kind of where I landed. Like when I reviewed it for my YouTube channel, I gave it a D, which there's only one other game I've given a D. You know what it is.
Which Halo?
It's my most no Halo Infinite got a good rating because of the campaign. I thought was all right. Oh no, it's probably my most controversial review on my YouTube channel.
Oh no,
it'd be The Last of Us Part 2.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that game, but there's that game is all over the story. Place. A lot of people don't necessarily like it.
We'll get to The Last of
Us.
We'll
talk about.
Somebody wrote in about The Last of Us. Yeah. I'll have my day there, but that's the only other game I've given like that low of a score to in the past. But like. This is different. This is just, it's fundamentally broken right now. Yeah. So I can't even recommend don't go out and spend money on this.
And this is after, it was delayed a couple times and like.
It needed, like, I tell you, after playing through at least the story to completion and when I was all said and done, I spent 30 hours with it. And I probably would have spent 40 to finish everything. Because I was at like maybe the like 65, 70% way of being done with the game when I hit that game breaking glitch. So it probably would take about 40 hours, but like even with that amount of time, like I can't recommend it because even the story is just not good. So then you have those characters that just aren't great. So it's kind of whatever. So I would say Saints Row just pass, like even in mild curiosity. When I was at Walmart last weekend, I picked up the remaster of Saints Row the Third for $10.
Yeah.
For the
Xbox. Maybe it's the kind of thing where if it ever ends up on one of these, like Game Pass or
it would be a great game for Game Pass when it is patched.
Right.
So, or the PlayStation version.
Yeah.
What do we call that? We just call that premium?
Premium is like the true
kind of
one.
What we refer to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Premium.
So that's Saints Row. I have played maybe 3 or 4 levels of Pac-Man World Repack. It's good. It's a remake of that game, just more modern. The graphics look really great. The music, it's a charming platformer with Pac-Man. I don't know what else.
Sure. Yeah. It's if you've played a Pac-Man World game before, you'd be familiar with it. I'm sure
it's good. The other big game I've played like maybe 5 or 6 hours of it, so I don't have too much to say on it. But I will next time we record because it's one of the games I want to get done this year before the end of the year.
Right.
It's Ghostwire Tokyo for the PS5.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's different. It's really different. It's like. It's not so like the first thing I had to do is when I started the game is like, obviously for me, I'm a big fan of Tango Gameworks. So the people made the Evil Within. Evil Within 2. I love the Evil Within 2. This is not the Evil Within 3. This is its own thing. It's kind of like your main character. It's your main character. He is at the beginning of the game. He's in like a bus accident. So you're like dead, like your soul's on the way to the afterlife.
Yeah.
You get stopped. And then there's another soul that comes down that kind of gets like mingled with your soul and it's with you and it's an ex-cop.
Okay.
All the time. And so the whole like city of Tokyo is taken over by like supernatural forces. So you're kind of right now in the game, I'm just kind of trying to figure out like what's going on with that.
Right.
But you'll do like different side missions. Like you might be walking down the street and there's this ghost and it's like, hey, my ghost can't rest in peace unless you go into this house and do this specific thing.
Sure.
And then you'll go in it. So it's stuff like that. Okay. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like, what was that game from a couple years ago?
Murdered Soul Suspect that we both loved? Game. Yeah, we both loved that game.
It reminds me of that only because that other soul that's with you is an ex-cop.
Sure.
So, like he'll talk to you all the time. He has like the typical like gruff cop voice.
Right.
And it's well done. I say the voice acting is very well done. It's also visually very impressive.
All you got to do is equate it to Murdered Soul Suspect for me to want to play it. So
I've seen it, like I've already seen it for $20 already. So like it's not expensive.
It's one of those things where I was hoping it was going to show up at that weird Walmart thing that we ran into.
Yeah, it would have been.
I was hoping that would have been.
I got it for $30.
It just ends up on that shelf
a month or two ago. But I was like, I'm at the point now where I'm like, well, I've been kind of like looking at. I have a stack of stuff, and we're going to talk about the other stuff here in a minute. But I was like, I really should sit down and play this game before the next thing comes out.
Yeah, and I've got a similar thing.
It's long either.
I've got a similar thing going on that we'll talk about when we get to what I've been playing.
And then the last two things that I'll talk about is, so I wanted to play Biomutant. I've had this game. That was one of our fabled $5 games from Walmart.
Yeah.
So it's been sealed for a while. But I purposely didn't open it because I wanted to wait for the next gen update.
Right.
Which I don't know if you know this. It is free on the Xbox. It is not on the PlayStation.
Of course.
It wants you to pay $40 for the PS5.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So, which is ridiculous. So, here's the problem. So I sat down today. I let the game install. It's not a big install. It's like under 20 gigs. I start the game. There is no sound.
What?
And I'm like, that's weird. So at first I was like, well, maybe the main menu just doesn't have sound. So I start creating my character. There's like a little cutscene. There's literally no audio. But when I press my Xbox guide button, there's audio. But there's no audio in the game. And I'm like, that's fucked up. So I exited the game, whatever, load up a different game. I think whatever the game I played previously, audio is perfectly fine. I go back to this game again, no audio. I play through the little intro. There's no fucking audio.
That's
so
bizarre.
I don't know if there's like some patch. I tried looking online. Nobody's talking about this for the Xbox version.
Did you uninstall, reinstall?
I tried that too. Didn't help it. I just uninstalled it. I put it back on my shelf. I'm like, maybe another day. So
yeah, that's weird.
I really wanted to play it because it just seems like another one of those weird, like, it almost seems like a 360 era B-level game.
Right.
What I was waiting for. And now that it has a good patch where it actually runs decently. And then briefly, I loaded up just like literally right before we recorded here, just because it was the next thing under my pile that I hadn't opened yet was the Cowabunga collection, which I know you probably played.
I can talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I messed around with it for a little bit. It's exactly what you expect it to be. There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no,
if you want to play those games and you want a good way to play them, this is a good way to play them.
Yeah.
So it's on everything.
I would say the only real problem I have with that game is the menu is awful.
The menu's weird, right?
It's not in any particular order. And it's not just like a list of them or like the cover art or any of that kind of stuff.
I was going to ask you, weird two versions of Turtles in Time. Is one of them like
arcade version? And
but it doesn't differentiate that it's arcade. The only difference is
it does. There's a little logo next to each title, so like it'll look like an arcade machine or it'll look like a Super Nintendo controller.
Okay,
but again, it's not in any particular order. Like you would think when you turn it on that the first game that would come up on the screen would be like the original Turtles for NES. No, exactly. It's like none of it. It's like when you get to that part, then it goes in order. But yeah, it's just weird because it's like arcade stuff first and then other things, but. So I messed around with most. I think I've played every game in some capacity. Yeah, I mean they're pretty much exactly what you expect.
How are the Game Boy games?
They're good. They're fun little games.
Playable? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I'll say in the Castlevania collection they did, those aren't very playable.
No, I would say the most fun I had with any game was the first Game Boy Turtles game because I'd never played it before, so I kind of wanted to see what it's like. And it's just a fun little side scroller, like beat 'em up attack kind of a thing. I will say that the games on there that are bad or the fighting games are bad games. I think I played them as a kid, but like, man, going back to them now,
they were arcade only, right? They didn't come out.
No. There was a Nintendo one, there's a Super Nintendo one, and there's a Genesis one, but they're all but unplayable. Like the computer is cheap. Like to get the trophies in this game. Most of them can be cheesed because you can do what's called watch mode, where you just watch some dude play through the game, and you can jump in at the end, make a save state, quit, and then load it, and then finish from there, and then you win. And you get the trophy for it.
I guess.
But the only games you can't do it on are some of the fighters, and the Genesis one, you have to beat the game on
Hyperstone.
Yeah, no. That's Turtles 5 locally. Like that's.
Okay.
It's basically like a remix of Turtles in Time for Genesis. But it's the tournament fighters game, but there's a Genesis version. You have to beat that game on the max difficulty. It's unbelievable. The computer reads inputs for sure.
Okay.
And like without like a rewind function and save states, there's no way I'd be able to do it. It's just awful.
No.
Yeah, it's just like those games are exactly what you want. Like I played through all the Turtles in Time. It's fun playing the arcade version because you could just mash start and get credits.
Yeah.
So you'll never lose. I mean, you could save state and all that kind of stuff, but all that really does is just save your place. It's not like you can, restart the game from there when you lose in whatever level. But it's what $40 for a physical copy. I think that's fair. But if you're kind of on the fence, or maybe there's only a couple games you want to play in it, it'll go on sale. It'll be 30 at some point.
It'll be 30 to 20 Black Friday.
Yeah, easily. But it's for a Turtles fan. I think it's a good deal, and it's a fun thing just to have because now they're just all in one place.
I also don't think it's like a rare, like limited run thing or anything. Like it's not going to be like that. It's a mass. You can just go.
Yeah, it's not like the Shredder one where the physical copies were only limited run.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously the Shredder's Revenge is a better game than anything that's on here, but that doesn't mean that these are bad games.
That's also unfair considering it's made 30 years later.
It's made now, but that doesn't mean any of them are bad. Like it's funny to play like the Turtles Arcade NES version and then play the arcade version because it's awful on the NES version comparatively. But it's there, and then you can play like the Japanese versions of stuff, which change some like the title screens and some other stuff around and a little bit like difficulty, I think, on a couple of them. But yeah, it's cool. It's good that it exists.
Yeah. So the biggest thing you've been playing it, and I want to hear about it because you and I played it like about 1.5 years ago on the Xbox, is PSO2.
Pretty much right when it came out, we played it. Yeah.
Yeah, we played it. More or less, I want to know how it runs.
Yeah. So I played a lot of it on Xbox because I was very amped for it to come out. The other thing you have to remember about this game is technically like a decade old.
Okay.
It's just we didn't get it until now.
It was on the Vita, I think.
Yeah, there's a version for Vita, PC, overseas, all that kind of stuff. But I played a lot of it on Xbox, and when they said it was going to come to PlayStation, I was like, I'll play it again. It'll give me a reason to like start over and make a new character, especially because the game is split into 2 parts, which has like PSO2 and then Phantasy Star New Genesis, which is like it's almost like a new game. It's weird how it works because it's hard to even argue it's a sequel because it plays differently. But but it's essentially like the next version of that game. What's interesting is like you can have one character across both games.
Okay.
And they don't really affect each other other than like your look and stuff. And then when you log in, you pick, do you want to play original PSO2 or do you want to play New Genesis? Because they are different, progressions different. The main reason I wanted to try this on PlayStation in the first place was New Genesis. When that came on Xbox, it was bad. It just couldn't run.
It was bad on PC as well.
On a 1X, it was choppy. It was blocky. The lag was just unbelievable.
Wasn't any better on Series X when it came out. It could be now. I've never gone back to try it.
I never went back. I just kind of deleted it and never thought about it again.
Have you played any of that content here?
I did. So that was the first thing I did. I wanted to see because that was like my test.
Yeah.
And I played through essentially the tutorial phase, right? Where you you get up to a certain point where you can kind of do what you want. I played through that part. It's much better now. It actually works. Like I had a little bit of slowdown when like a ton of stuff was on the screen, but the way that game works where like things are constantly spawning in and like there's explosion effects and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can forgive that. That's not that big of a deal. So, that actually worked quite a bit, but once I got to that part where I could kind of run around, I quit out of that and went back to old PSO2 just because I want to play through. I never finished the story part because they added a couple of things after we had left last time. So I wanted to finish that part. So I went back and now I'm playing through like that story and going through all the quests again. It's still a fun game. It's just Phantasy Star. Like it's a very old, in terms of like how it's set up and stuff, like style of RPG, but it's not a bad thing by any means. I don't know, I like that game a lot. It's fun. There's more people playing it than I thought. It is cross.
This surprised me though because
it is crossplay, so like
install base,
and they just have like little everybody just has little icons next to their name that shows what you're playing on.
That's cool.
The only thing that's ever really been a super problem about that game is like the menus and like the font size and the window size.
You can't change it.
You can kind of change it, but you have to change it from like the beginning menu before you log in.
Oh,
so you kind of have to like mess around. And I like small is like arguably too small, and medium is too big. There's not so
there's no middle ground.
I wish it had a thing where like I could edit the size of the windows myself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Where like you set up your HUD and you go in and you're like, I want this one this big. I want it in this corner. Like there's not, if there is something like that, there could be, because there's a ton of settings in this game. I haven't found it. Maybe I'll have to look through it more, but it's got all the standard features like the chat window. I wish I could permanently close the chat window sometimes and not have it open all the time.
Well, I think
just
it's also important to
because.
note, like you're playing. This is not a PS5 game. This is a PS4
No,
game. You're
this is a
playing on PS5.
PS4 version.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it
Okay.
acknowledges that you're on a PS5. Like, it can
Okay.
clearly tell the difference. Another thing that's cool is if you did play it on something else before, you could bring your character in.
Yeah, we had
You
talked
have
about
to
that, but
log
like I'd
into
probably
that
start over
account.
too.
Yeah, you have to like log into that account
Yeah.
and like get a code and then put that in when you set up your character for the first time. I
Okay.
could have done that, but I just didn't. I didn't care enough to
It's a
go that
lot,
far.
yeah.
Especially considering, like, even though I'd played a bunch, I wasn't like end game stuff at PSO. So
Yeah.
I played more of it today. I've played a lot of it. I'll play
Okay.
more of it. And eventually I'll get through the new Genesis stuff. But the other thing that about this game that just kind of irks me, just from like from a me standpoint, no platinum trophy, but it has 48 trophies.
Weird.
Yeah. So it's weird because
that
it's
should just
broken
be
up
a
by
mandated
like,
thing now. Like if they care.
yeah, it's just it's strange because like they've added trophies, they added new Genesis trophies, like all those kind of stuff. So, like they have edited this game, but yeah, no platinum trophy, so it'll just be a 100% completion type thing, and not a platinum, which is weird.
That's weird.
Yeah. The other stuff I've done is I finally platinum Digimon Survive. I finished that.
Okay.
All 4 playthroughs of that.
Okay.
I'll say I'll say it again. I really like the game because I knew what it was going in. I still think a lot of
I knew
people
what it
don't
was
understand
going into it too. So that's why I
and
enjoyed what I
the
thought
other
of
thing
it.
that's cool about it is like the 4 playthroughs, the endings are wildly different.
Why? Okay.
Like, yeah, certain people, I talked about it before, where like there's a way to save everybody, and it kind of depends on if you save this one person at the beginning.
Sure.
So to play through the other 3, you kind of have to make that person die, which is kind of dumb. But once you get to a certain point and you finish the other 3 versions of the endings where like not everyone's going to live, different people die in each one. And,
okay.
And it causes other characters to behave certain ways and things to turn out differently, like much differently. Cool. So it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, like, that game's only rated teen, and like there's no
dark.
like, yeah, it really is.
A little bit.
There's no like, like actively see people get murdered, but in one of the endings, it's heavily implied that one of these kids gets ripped in half.
Oof.
Yeah, okay. And you're just like, okay, and then that makes another character kind of lose their shit, and the whole thing spins from that point. But that was one point where I was very surprised with how far this game decided to go.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I don't think many games in that. I mean, visual novels tend to go that far, I think. Like, if you remember, like games like 999 and Danganronpa and stuff like that, they tend to get pretty dark. But for a Digimon game, it's crazy. But that's all done. I think I caught every or convinced every version of everyone to join me and use all that and got that trophy. That was the hardest one, but not bad. And then finally finished Wonderland's DLC. That's done. Okay. That game's uninstalled now. Overall, I'd say the main game
was solid.
It's good. It's perfectly serviceable if you wanted a Borderlands game.
Dragged it down.
The DLC, well, because the DLC is just 4 versions of the same concept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You run through a couple rooms and fight a boss.
Well, plus they had that staggered
4 times
thing you were saying last time. Which, like,
so you got to do each one of these things 4 times, and there's 4 of them. But only one of the bosses actually gave us any trouble, just because it's set up to be a complete pain in the ass.
Okay.
And with only 3 people, it's a little more difficult because there's part of that one where like you can get downed and there's no way to get you up. You have to get yourself up, and if you don't, then you're dead and you're out of the fight. But that was rough. And then the 4th one you would think would be the hardest boss of them all. It's not. It's pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, it was weird. But that game's done. I'm happy it's done. I don't think they're making anything else for it. I really would doubt it at this point.
No, it seems like they've fulfilled, because they had like their version of a season pass, right?
Yeah, and that's what that.
And they've fulfilled
those
that.
4 things were, and that's fulfilled. But Borderlands 3 had season pass too, so who knows?
It's possible.
I doubt it. My guess would be they're working on whatever 4 is.
Yeah.
Or
that makes sense.
Or or Borderlands 0 or whatever the heck the next thing they're going to work on is. But I would have to assume they've moved on, which is fine.
That would be my guess too.
It's going to be a while. Well, and that one can be finally like PS5 only, Xbox Series X only. Like they don't have to make past gen versions of whatever the next one is.
Exactly.
And then the last thing I played was just like I was trying to like find little
on the premium thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find little things on there to play and like little indie type stuff. And I found this game called The Swapper, which is just like it's a puzzle game, and it's like it's got a Metroid vibe to it because you're like an astronaut in like a weird space station / planet kind of a thing, and you essentially get an ability to shoot out like a clone of yourself. Okay. So like he could be 20 feet away from you.
So you're like swapping places.
So how it works is like there's a like shadow image of your person that walks the same way you walk or jumps the same way you jump. Okay. But you can shoot them up so that they stand on a switch. And then as long as you can see them, you can swap to that person. And then that's how all the puzzles and stuff are designed. That's cool. It's pretty neat. It's basic puzzle solving. There's no enemies or anything like that. It's just
sounds like a good premium / Game Pass title.
Yeah, it's great to just like mess around with. It's all puzzles. It's how do I get to this door or how do I get to that door? The point of the game is like find orbs and just collect orbs.
Sure.
And then there's certain things where it's like you can't shoot through like certain colors you can't swap through certain colors and stuff like that. So it's just it's a thinking game. But I like those as like sometimes as a cooldown thing where like it's not action and I'm not mashing buttons or anything like that. You have to look at a room. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, sometimes you don't always want to be playing that type of game.
Yeah, I just want something chill. And then And then now that I cleared two big games off my list, it frees me up to play other backlog stuff to try to get rid of some of this stuff before.
Well, you're in the same boat I am, where we have like 2 weeks until Field Chronicles.
Yeah, that comes out. Valkyrie comes out soon. Tactics Ogre is soon. Like I want to play all of those.
I'm trying to think. Like I don't think I really have anything too big in October that I'm buying. I'll play Scorn, but I don't have to pay for that.
I don't think I'm buying anything.
But I think like my big games are like Field and then the one that you just mentioned, Valkyrie Elysium. And then Star Ocean, which I know I'll buy that day one. I won't play it day one.
No, I won't play that right away.
I will save that. And then we get to November, and then we have got to
so I got a lot of RPG stuff in the middle. I think what I'm finally going to do is finish Lost Judgment, because I was like halfway through that.
That's a good idea.
Clear that game out, because I really like that game a lot, and just jumped off for some reason. And then I've got plenty of other stuff I could play.
The only other thing I'll add to my list, then we can move on to news, because I just remembered it since you're talking about Premium and Game Pass. I did play the Wheel of Fortune game that you were talking about.
I finished that. Yeah,
it's just a good version of Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah, so I just like Wheel of Fortune. So
yeah, if you like Wheel of Fortune, it's free if you have Premium. Like it's definitely worth playing. It's not like anything really special other than it's just Wheel of Fortune and it plays well.
You can play quick versions of it, full games of it. Like I just like playing Wheel of Fortune. You can technically play it online against other people if you want. You can. There's probably people playing because it's free now.
It's free now.
Yeah, it's just sometimes I just like playing Wheel of Fortune. I got all the trophies and I was like, I think I'm done for now. I installed it and I'll probably go back to it at some point.
Well, we can kick over to news because we have a lot of news. And like I said, there's some news I've mixed in with the emails and so on. So some of it big, some of it not, in our, and I'm sure there's probably more than one game as I get on the list that has been delayed because there's a lot of games.
As always.
It's a lot.
That could be its own section.
The first one is that Sons of the Forest game is delayed till February, which if I'm being honest, it'll be delayed again because February's a bad time. Well, February has too much now, so that's like what everybody's delaying their games to February, March, and then they're going to go, oh shit, there's too many things coming out. We got to move this.
That always happens. Stuff that's supposed to come out at the end of the year always gets pushed to February or March, and then it's like, well, there's 10 games this week. So yeah, it always gets messed around.
So after that here, this was more of I thought it was an interesting article, is that the director of the 2017 Prey, so the one that was made by Arcane, said he was forced to use the title Prey. And he basically said it was gross. It's not what I wanted to do. Obviously, like Bethesda owned the rights to that, so they wanted to use that name. That was an easy name, probably a lot easier than them going out and copywriting something else.
I guess so, but like for having you're a company that already has a game named Prey, and at one point you were developing a sequel
that looked incredible.
That looked cool because it was very different.
Yeah.
But to force it on an Alien like mimic style game is strange, because you would think that they were going to try to turn that into a franchise too, because that game was cool and it did well. But
it did very well. Like, I would imagine we will get a sequel to it at some point.
Maybe it won't be
like,
called
as someone
Prey.
who's played it, I'd never finished it, but as someone who played it, like, it's a very cool game. But as someone who loves the original Prey from 2006, there's nothing to do with that game at all.
It didn't need to be called that. It could have been called any. And I think part of the problem was that just led to a lot of confusion. It's like, is this a sequel? Is this in the same universe? It has nothing to do with it.
It has nothing to do with it. So it's a weird, I thought it was an interesting story. And maybe that's what's tying up them doing a sequel, is that guy, now has publicly said I didn't want to use that name. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I would have to imagine that game did well enough that they'll do a sequel, though.
I think
have
so.
to imagine, because
it's got to be. It's got to be in like the rotation of stuff for them, because now they've got that. I would imagine Dishonored 3 happens at some point, and Deathloop will probably get some, maybe not a sequel, but like a similar style game.
That's what I mean? I think too. Yeah. Deathloop, I think, did well enough, and like I would imagine soon
that game did really well. It got like
Xbox
9s and 10s.
I'm talking about sales, like the reviews. It did really well,
but critically enough, I think just that's enough for that game to get a.
Isn't that the like basic tier plus game this month? Is Deathloop?
Is it?
I'm pretty sure I saw that was one of the free games this month.
No. Free games were like Need for Speed. Something out, not Deathloop.
It's not Deathloop?
No.
I swear I heard Deathloop was coming. I don't know.
Maybe it will eventually. Right. It's a cool
maybe
game.
Next month.
Yeah.
It would make sense, because like you have to imagine when it does come out on the Xbox, which now that year is up this week, it'll probably be a Game Pass game. They are having an event this week for Game Pass stuff for the rest of the year. They're going to announce.
Could put that
I guarantee
on there.
that's one of those. Yeah. And that would be a big deal. As we love to talk about, and we got a good email about Halo Infinite last week. Some of us do. Halo Infinite, they announced their very bad, terrible plans. I made a video about this on my YouTube channel. It's actually one of my most recent very successful videos. The game's fucking over. Like, that's basically what it's basically them admitting defeat. So the biggest news here is they can't, as I predicted a long time ago, split screen co-op is completely canceled. They are saying that under the guise of, well, those people are going to go help work on the live service part of the game. Nobody buys that, because what's happening with the live service?
Well, do you also enjoy the fact that split screen co-op is canceled, but there's a way to glitch it?
There's a way to do it, yeah.
It works.
So there's a way you can glitch it. It's very glitchy, but there's a way you can do it.
I mean, we talked, you and I have talked about it, not on here, but like just in general. Like, I don't think a lot of people understand what split screen co-op, like the mechanics of that actually entail. Like, you essentially have to run that game 4 times on one system and stuff.
And for a classic Halo, that makes sense. This is a totally different kind of Halo.
You don't necessarily, well, especially because the worlds are bigger and everything's bigger. Like, I don't even necessarily think that, like, if they had never announced that the game was going to have it and it didn't have it, I don't think people would have cared. But I think either. But now we're at a point where they're taking features away, and it's like, well, you haven't even finished the game, so how are you taking stuff away from it?
Exactly.
So that's the thing that's kind of messed up about it.
I think one of the bigger things here too is, like, so they're already on this like 6-month trajectory for their seasons. This current season has now stretched to about 10 months. It will not end until March. They are doing like a mid-season thing where they're going to add some updates. So there's a big update in November that's going to actually have the online co-op mode. It'll have a beta of the Forge mode, which some people cling to that as like, that's going to be the savior of this game. It's not going to be the savior. Like, the game's, it's over, because all the cool shit that you're seeing is done on high-end computers. People aren't making that on their Series X.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And then you're going to get it's the same thing. You're going to get 2 new maps. You're going to get 1 new weapon, but you don't get that weapon until the March update, which right now they're saying in March. That update in that season's only going to be 3 months, but I'll believe it when I see it. So
it's just like,
I can't imagine how mismanaged this game has become. And like,
well, they keep making road maps and then not hitting it.
And then they keep pushing that stuff to the next roadmap, or saying we're sorry, or this is a beta.
And and we're thinking about, we're going to remove this. And
the other thing that the last thing I'll point out about it, because I think it's also slapped to the face, is they are beta testing in the November update an actual XP progression system for multiplayer, like what people want.
Right.
So it's not going to be challenge based anymore, which is another big problem with that multiplayer.
Well, and that's the thing, is like the only thing that this game really had to get right out of the gate was multiplayer.
Exactly.
It's the only thing that had to be right. They could have even done it in such a shitty way where it was like multiplayer's out, and then we're going to release the campaign missions once every
waves or
2 weeks or something. And everybody will be like, well, that sucks, but the whole point is you want as many people to keep playing this game as possible.
Exactly.
The only thing that matters is multiplayer, and you've just overpromised and never delivered.
To the free-to-play microtransaction model, but you have to have that carrot on the stick for people to keep playing. That doesn't exist in this game.
Right.
It's literally just, well, if you want to do these challenges, oh, hey, you want to go, let's say today's challenge is go play 10 oddball matches. What if I don't like oddball?
Right.
That challenge means nothing to me. So then I don't progress to get the next item that I want in the game, part of the battle pass.
Right. It should be 10 multiplayer matches. It should be the most generic thing there is. Like,
especially when there was only like 4 modes in the game. Now there's 3 because they took that most recent one out because everybody hated it. So,
but it should be like, if you want to progress in the game, play the stuff you enjoy playing.
Exactly.
And so many companies don't understand that. Like, and
exactly.
So. This game needs to be ripped away from 343. Phil should kick in the door and be like, stop. Everybody stop.
So I thought it was interesting. They just announced that and I forget what he was before, but Matt Booty, that's his last name. Yeah, he's now the head of
Xbox. Yeah.
Maybe that's what they needed. Maybe this guy will go in and start moving some things around. I don't know, but like, it's clear to me after 10 years, like 343 is not capable of making a good Halo game as a complete package.
They can't.
Out the gate. We need to just give it anybody. There's so many studios that Microsoft can pull from now to make it. I mean, I'll always say id Software would be my choice, but there's other ones that could easily do it. Anybody could probably do a better job.
I don't want to fuck up id's progression though. Like, I don't want to.
Well, I want to get my Wolfenstein 3 first.
I think we need to get our Wolfensteins and our Dooms and all that stuff.
And a third Doom. I'll take a third Doom as well.
Yeah, that's coming.
I think you get Wolfenstein before Doom though, but Wolfenstein's actually Machine Games now. I forget that.
Right? Yeah. So. Well, that's a separate.
And they gotta make that and put that out before Indie comes. So.
Right.
But yeah, Halo Infinite, it just continues to be sad. It's the easiest way. Here, and we can turn that into a good upper here, which is this. I think is really cool. It's been rumored for a while. We finally got details on it. Xbox Game Pass is getting a friends and family plan. The thing I think that is cool about this is instead of $15 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, it's $25 a month, but you can have up to 5 people on it.
Right. So
which is crazy.
Answer me this because I want to make sure I understood it right.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the thing where like you and I could split it and I could still have my gamer tag?
Yes, it is. Then, the way that you can split it across anybody, you have to be in the same territory. So as long as you're all in North America, you can do, or I think it might even be just America, but as long as you're in the same like territory, it can be 5 people. It doesn't matter.
I just wanted to make sure that, like, it could still be my gamer tag. So like now you and I we can split it. Like we have another friend we could easily split this cost.
Exactly. With. Yeah. Like the thing well, the thing that's cool, but it's not like, cause I had to look into it. I was like, oh, is the kind of thing where that's cool, but you have to make new gamer tags because they all have to be
that would have ruined it.
Yeah, that would have ruined it. But no. And it's $25 a month. Like, you think about it, like that's for 5 people.
We've got
is fucking
3 other people we could easily split this with.
Easily split it with. So it's good. There's no date on it yet. I would have to imagine it's this holiday season. They're going to want to get that out.
It'd be a really good push for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Buy a system and buy this, and you're all set to go. But if it's $25 and we could get it down to $5 each
a person, like that's.
I mean,
it's a no-brainer. Mine's up in October, so
mine's
coming around the corner.
Yeah, so
yours lapsed, I think. So
mine's lapsed, and I was waiting for a reason to redo it, and here it is. Yeah.
Let's see here. This one kind of bummed me out. You can kind of go either way on it. This was super random too. The developers of Splitgate, the 1047 games, developers of Splitgate are ending development on Splitgate. So they're putting out like a final free battle pass, and they'll keep doing like patches, but they're not going to make any more maps or anything because they're going to go make their own like single player game off of Splitgate with Unreal 5. So they're using a lot of the money they made off of Splitgate to do that, which you can look at it. I mean, there's two ways like it. You're going to have the cynical people that are pissed because Splitgate's kind of ending, but also they made a hell of a game. It was free to play.
That you also
I'd like to see what they do.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, let them make what they want to make now. Like
exactly. Like
if anything, it's not like they're turning it off. It's just they're not making.
No, like I'll say full disclosure. Like I bought the 2 season passes that they did because I played a lot of Splitgate, but I didn't buy any of the skins or anything.
Right? Yeah.
Like with actual money, just whatever I earned out of that battle pass. So that's a hell of a game, though. So I would love to see what those guys can make for like a single player game with that engine and with like all the Portal stuff.
Yeah.
So. Let's talk about the big Assassin's Creed shit because there's a lot
of it.
It's confusing.
A lot of it. It is confusing, but I think
we can probably manage and explain it.
It's probably the right way to go when you talk about the amount of content they're actually making.
Yeah.
So
we can start with the easiest part of it, which is the next game is called Assassin's Creed Mirage, as it's been heavily rumored for the last 2 weeks. Well, it got to the point where it literally leaked, and then they had to come out and say, yeah, that's real. We're going to talk about it in a couple of days. It's set in Baghdad, which I think is awesome. But
cool.
The most interesting thing to point out is this is a return to classic Assassin's Creed. So it's all stealth. It's not an RPG like the last 3. It's also a budget game, so it's only going to be $50. It's not going to be $70.
But this is part of where I think that there's room for like all of these different things to exist. Because if you go back a couple titles, like obviously Origins dramatically changed what that series is.
It's a great
for the better, and then Odyssey improved that and made it even better
of those games. Yeah,
but we're talking about games that like I just finished Odyssey a year ago, and we're talking about a game that took me 150 plus hours.
It took me 150 hours to do that game, and
I was talking to a friend about it. I didn't mind it. Like I maybe towards the very end where I was doing like small little cleanup stuff, it was a bit much. But for a 150-hour game, for me to just be genuinely interested like the entire way through, that's pretty rare. And then obviously Valhalla is built on that same formula. I haven't touched that one yet, but I'm kind of getting close to the point where I want to play that one now.
That was the problem. Because by the time I played Odyssey, I didn't want to play Valhalla because I already just played Odyssey.
And the other thing is like Valhalla had all this DLC progression and stuff, and like now it's over. So they're gonna release the last one.
Yeah.
It's a free like story ending DLC. Awesome. Perfect time to start it because I'll get all of it and I can just play through it. But again, that's another 150-hour open world action RPG. I don't need another one immediately after it in Mirage. So to split it and go back to what Assassin's Creed was kind of meant to be in the beginning. Now, if you go back and talk about like Assassin's Creed 1, I think that's a terrible game. Like, and I get
today's standards,
no, even when I played it, I hated it. And I finished it, but I could not understand why like everybody was like, oh my god, it's the greatest. 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. My favorite thing was in the Game Informer review, one of the guys, it was like 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and one guy gave it a 3. And it was like, thank God somebody understands, because problem with that game is it's like it's too open, there's not enough to do, and when you do stuff, it's all the same shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Like collect these flags and all this kind of stuff. So, but obviously framework was in place to make that a better game. And then 2 really,
and they did with 2
fixed it and all that kind of stuff. But I would like to play a game like the first one,
modern,
made today, where they can avoid the trappings of what hurt the first game. Exactly. And if that's what Mirage is going to be, I'm all in. That's cool. Because then we also get the next one after that. We get the codename Red, which is supposed to be like the feudal Japan one, which is awesome as hell. Like that is the one everybody wants. We talked last time about like, man, I wish I'd make a new Tenchu game. It's like, maybe they are. There it is. So that's a great one. And then there's like that codename like Hex one.
Hex, I think was it China? Was that the one that was set in China, or is that the mobile one?
They're talking about it might be based on like witchcraft and stuff, because it's got like Blair Witch themes in the trailer and all that kind of stuff. And then the other thing about all this is like supposedly starting with Red, it's all going to feed into this Assassin's Creed Infinity stuff.
Yeah, like a real Nexus thing. Yeah.
Where it's like a hub, that's where the multiplayer would live. And this is
that's
smart
also
because
where they're gonna tell the like main
the real world story. Yeah, which
they've kind of
honestly
really gotten away of. Yeah.
After Black Flag, I just really could have cared less about that.
I skipped through those few, and those sections get like shorter and shorter between these like most recent 3 games. Like they don't matter. They're
and
boring.
Like I gave up on. I don't care about the Templars versus the Assassins in New York City. Like I just don't. But the other cool thing about this Infinity is if we're gonna put the multiplayer in there, then they don't have to package it in with every game that comes out, and they don't have to be like, well, this is the multiplayer for Red and this is the multiplayer for Hex.
Yeah,
it's one thing. They can update it. They can do seasons easily. Like this is like the characters from Red are in this now, and the characters from Hex. Like to have that live as one thing, and like if you've got Hex installed on your system and Red installed on your system, you boot the Infinity thing, and then you just pick the launcher from it. Yeah, it's just a launcher for your console.
Yeah.
It's like if they're going to make this much content, they probably have to have like a singular Nexus place to get in. I'm all for it. Like Assassin's Creed has been really good for like the past couple entries, so I'll take more until they kill it, which they will, but that's fine.
Oh, they will. It's going to get to that point again where it needs to have another reboot and take a year off.
Another break, yeah.
So, the one thing I will say at least about these big ones that we've had is you at least got time in between them. It's just for me, like I played Odyssey a few months before Valhalla came out because I waited for all the DLC and stuff to be out. And then when Valhalla came out, I was like, I don't want another 150-hour game right now.
You can't.
I just couldn't do it.
Too much.
No. So, but again, good stuff coming. I'm excited about Mirage this next year. So it's not a game that's coming out this year. But it's already, the other thing I saw today is like, there's a lot of rumors that it's currently rated AO because it has gambling in it. And I feel like if that is true, it'll be changed. So they're not going to put it out with an AO.
They would never release an AO title.
No, I just don't see it. So, this one I just threw in here because I think it's funny that we still have Epic Game Store exclusives, but Dead Island 2 is an Epic Game Store exclusive on PC.
Sure, man.
Like actual full exclusive. It's not going to come to Steam, which seems really wild, but that we're still doing that. State of Decay 3, which I'm excited about whenever it comes out. But my opinion on that game is take the time you need. Make something really cool. I don't need it to be rushed. They're getting help from the Gears of War developers. They're using Unreal 5, so that game's gonna be a while, which is fine. Again, keep doing what you're doing. They keep updating State of Decay 2, and it's still awesome.
Yeah, I don't think that's
putting cool stuff in that game.
It's a franchise they'll never let go. So exactly. That's fine.
So, I should point this out. Both of the systems just got big like UI updates. I think the PlayStation got folders and stuff.
Folders finally.
Got that 1440p support for people
clean
to
up some stuff.
Monitors.
Yeah.
Which that's fine. I need to plug in my PlayStation controller and do that update because it keeps.
I just did that too. Yeah.
The Xbox got its big fall update, which the most important feature here, which I have used now, I can confirm it works really well. Because every time I talk to my best friend on Xbox Live, he always has a fucking fan on in the background. Right. And I no longer hear it thanks to the noise suppression feature. Like I literally just don't hear that fucking fan anymore.
That's good.
So it's really good. The other thing that's really cool about this update is just because they updated the boot time for that system. It literally boots in 4 seconds.
Yeah, I laugh.
I can confirm. Every time
there's like, we figured out a way to do it. Yeah.
Like literally you hit the button, you barely see that Xbox logo and you're on your dash.
That's cool.
Like there's no reason to use
Isn't there supposedly another big update coming early next year?
Next year they're going to completely redo the UI, which I threw that in here down here. So they're going to have a complete redone UI. I think part of the reason for that is they've kind of been using the same iteration of this UI since the 360. Because if you go back and try on the 360 now, it has a similar UI.
The tiles and stuff, it needs to be.
The picture they showed of it is really cool. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but they're actually asking for people's feedback. Like, what do they want? What features they want? So it's going to be cool. There's no date for it. I would assume it's early next year. I don't think it's something that's a year off. So,
no.
But this update we just got was your big fall update. So, They also, the only other thing that they really did for the Xbox update is they changed a lot of the ways you can sort like your library of games, which is pretty cool. So it makes that easier. You can actually sort by purchase date, which is cool. You could never do that on the Xbox.
Yeah, that's actually
you do that on the PlayStation. Mm-hmm. So that's another cool part of it. But just an overall really good like update. I'll always say this, like between the Xbox and PlayStation, like Microsoft is really good at updating their system. The internal like all
they
the
take
UI
feedback
stuff.
really well, and they try to use it. Yeah.
So Sony, it takes them a little longer. So, and sometimes they just ignore things. So, but let's see. The next thing here, we can talk about Cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk, they had a big like to do about that a couple days ago. The biggest news, there's two big things about it. One is that they're not going to do any more development on the PS4 and Xbox One versions. So those versions are kind of done now.
Which is what they should have done when they were making that game.
They should have. And then the other thing is they announced a huge expansion, the only expansion that's going to come out for this game. That will only be on next-gen systems. I think they said fall 2023 is what they're shooting for it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that makes sense. With all of that, they also put out a massive update for that game that I know fixed a lot of glitches and problems again. Well, that game's actually really fun. So
I'm going to play it.
It's worth playing now.
I'm going to play it now. Yeah, like I bought it as part of that. I think it was Best Buy for $10 or something. Mm-hmm. Because during the whole like, oh God, we have too many copies of this era. But
there's still too many copies of that game out there.
Yeah, for $10, I was like, yeah, someday I'll play it. And like now that it's a PS5 game and there'll be PS5 content, like all they have to do with this DLC is take their time. If it's not ready when you want to release it, don't release it. Exactly. They cannot afford to fuck this up again.
It's also important to note Keanu Reeves is returning for the DLC, which I thought was cool. He's a big part of that game. Like, he's not just a cameo.
I know.
Johnny Silverhand,
man.
He's good. Another cool. I thought at least this was cool. Honestly, with the continuation of like Square Enix dumping shit, Crystal Dynamics now fully owns the rights of Tomb Raider and Legacy of Kain. So they actually own both of those IPs now. Maybe that means I'll get a new Legacy of Kain game. I'd like to see a new one.
Who the hell knows what's going on anymore?
I would love to see a new one. So
maybe it means Avengers 2.
I don't know, man. And then our final big like news story before we have other news stories that are part of emails here, but everything, there wasn't a lot, but everything that they showed, Disney had their big D23 thing. Mm-hmm. I'd say the bigger announcements of that thing were TV show related than
movies,
games,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but for games, they announced a Tron visual novel. Like, I guess if you like Tron, that's cool. I'm not a Tron person.
I'm not either.
Like Tron Identity, sure.
Yeah.
There was some weird, like, this is one I actually watched a trailer for. It seemed kind of cool. It's called Disney Illusion.
Yeah,
Disney Illusion Island.
The Mickey game.
The Mickey Mouse game. Yeah, it looked kind of cool.
It's based off of the newer cartoons they make for that.
Okay, I figured it was something.
Yeah, they have a newer version of Mickey Mouse cartoons that look like that.
Okay.
I will say I showed it to both of my kids and they're both interested in it. Especially since it is co-op, like it looks like single screen multiplayer. Which
I think
is
it's
nice.
Single screen up to 4 people.
Yeah,
you can play Mickey, Minnie,
Donald, and Goofy,
and Donald. Yeah,
yeah. So it'll be a fun thing. I think I'll probably end up getting that for my kids.
Okay. One game that keeps getting delayed got another release date again, which is Marvel's Midnight Suns. Now it says December.
Sure.
I think it's like December 11th or something.
That game comes out when it comes out. Okay.
Yeah. Will it hit that? I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Good.
They probably looked at it and said, like, do we really want to put this out in like January, February when stuff's actually coming out? So I don't know. They announced like some more characters for the Skywalker Saga Lego game. Another one that I thought was cool. This is actually a show I have not seen since I was a kid. That Gargoyles show had a game. They're doing a remaster of that, which I thought is pretty cool. I don't think they showed like gameplay of it. I think it was just an announcement.
I think you might be right. I don't think I actually saw.
And then the last two things they talked about, that game that just came out, that Disney Dreamlight Valley, which is on Game Pass. Mm-hmm. It's like it's basically Animal Crossing with Disney characters, is my understanding.
Yeah, pretty much.
It reviewed very well, actually. That's getting some Toy Story stuff, which they're going to dump every Disney property they can into it, since it seems like it's successful. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then finally, this was heavily rumored like a couple days before this thing. They had their teaser for the next big Marvel game, which has, what is it? It's Captain America and Black Panther.
Black Panther, a dude from the Howling Commandos, and then one of the the Black Panther women warrior
but no
characters.
Actual game title or gameplay shown.
They showed a trailer of a desk, and then it had a Hydra symbol on it, and then they showed a shield and a claw.
Okay.
And it's not T'Challa, it's his grandfather because it's 1940s.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, sure. I need to see what it is.
I feel like that's a 2024 game. They're not showing anything here.
Probably. So, again, I need to know what it is before I can form any kind of opinion because Avengers has completely ruined that. So,
I mean, I hope it's just a third-person action adventure.
I was talking to somebody else too. We're like, I've been playing Injustice 2 lately too, just kind of my downtime, getting trophies and stuff.
It's a great game.
And I thought to myself, why do I not have a Marvel game like this? The last thing we got was Infinite Marvel vs. Capcom, and that game was bad.
Very bad.
So it's been a very long time since I've had a Marvel fighting game I actually cared about. MVC 3 was fine, but why can't I have a Marvel game like this?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Especially now, you look at the competition. Look at those Injustice games; they're highly successful.
Well, and Marvel's more popular now than it ever was. Why isn't there a good Marvel fighting game?
Exactly.
Just copy Injustice. Weird. Just do it.
You could just do that.
You could.
But what? Yeah.
Call Ed Boon and be like, "What's it going to take for you to drop your DC contract?" And then back up the money truck.
I think Ed Boon's doing just fine, but I'm sure if they called him and they offered him the right amount of money, he'd do it.
He don't care. He's making Mortal Kombat next, I'm sure, and then his plate's clear.
It seems like Mortal Kombat is what's coming next.
It's probably next, yeah.
That's what makes sense. So why don't we transition into emails since we got a lot of emails? Mm-hmm. Some of them, like I said, I shoved some news in. The first one I'll read, unfortunately, I'll say the game that's being recommended is actually something Matt has played, so I will read the email and then I will just probably say stay tuned because I know he can speak to it. But this comes from Kate from Orlando, Florida. She says, "Hi guys, I was wondering if any of you have played Little Nightmares or the sequel. It is a really solid and spooky series and I highly recommend it. I can say I've played the original one. I really like. Actually, own the collector's edition of it randomly.
I own it, but I never.
I really like it. Matt, who's not here this time, he has played. I believe at this point he has completed Little Nightmares 2. So
I think I've talked to him about it a little bit. Yeah, he
really likes it.
Yeah.
So he'll probably have more to say about that next time. But I do own Little Nightmares 2, so at some point I'm going to look at it. I just haven't had a chance.
Yeah, and I bought the collectors of the first one just because I thought it looked really cool, but I never got around to opening it. And now it's just one of those things where it's going to stay sealed. Oops.
Well, might as well.
Might as well.
Next email comes from Steve from Houston, Texas. I will say we got a lot of emails on this. I just picked one of them, but know that I read all of them. Says, "Hey dudes, love the podcast. Was curious what you all think about the changes to GameStop's return policy as well as generally how you guys feel about the return policy having worked there for years. As a former employee, I hate the people who would buy a game just to beat it and return it within the 7-day time frame. Thanks."
So we'll preface this by saying Kyle and I had many conversations about this over the many years we worked there.
Almost daily.
For those of you that
someone that would do it daily.
Yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar with how the return policy worked, when Kyle and I worked there, and up until this change, was if you bought anything new, sealed, you had 30 days to return it, as long as it wasn't opened. If you opened it, too bad. Therein lies the problem with, we open new games to put them on the shelf, and we have to seal them with a sticker. So it's like if the sticker was broken, you couldn't return it. That's a whole other argument we've talked about in the past, and we'll talk about it again in the future, I'm sure. But the biggest problem was used stuff would be 30-day defective guarantee, right? Or was it 90? 30.
I think it's 30.
Game Crazy was 90. So 30-day defective guarantee. If anything wrong with it in a couple weeks and you want another copy, bring it back. As long as it's within, if you didn't buy a GPG, it had to be like, it just stopped working or whatever. You didn't damage it. But the biggest problem one was always 7-day used. You could return it for your money back. No questions. Whatever. You bought it Friday. You had until, people would argue it'd be till next Friday, but it's not because it's the day that it starts. So it's actually 7 days from today.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Like the whole thing was always just a nightmare because
it was a nightmare.
People abused it. You'd buy a brand new used game we got traded in an hour ago and keep it for a week and then return it and get your money back and just take the cash and leave. And then you would do it the next week and you do it the next week and you do it the next week. Was there technically a limit to how many times you could do that? No. Could we technically shut you off from doing that?
Yes.
No, not really.
No.
Because it was within policy. Did we shut people off for doing that? Yes. Yeah, we told you no. We've talked about some customers in the past who we didn't like who actually took advantage of that stuff, but that was always the biggest problem because it applied to controllers, systems, fucking headsets. That's gross. Don't ever buy a used headset. That is disgusting. I will tell you from seeing people who trade stuff in, it's gross.
You don't want to do that.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. So this return policy update, some things have changed, some things haven't. Makes sense. Yeah, so like unopened special editions, you only have 7 days to return it. That's to try to combat, instead of 30 in the past, that's try to combat resellers who buy collector's editions of stuff and try to sell it, and then at 3 weeks they return it for money back.
Yeah.
Hardware didn't really change. What else? Accessories got cut to 15 days, which is good because I don't know if you remember this, but there was one time at 2649. You remember that store, right? Not 4901, but the other one. Some guy bought 50 or 60 360 controllers like online.
Okay.
And he came in to return them to that store because he was going to mod them and custom them, and then realized he couldn't or wouldn't make any money off of it. So he returned them all to that store. A month later. Yeah, and it murdered that week. Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember that store just had mountains of controllers in the back, and other stores would come and take them. But yeah, so like that's good that's probably less time. The whole point of this is to cut time down so that to just try to shorten that window so people can't take advantage of stuff.
Exactly.
What else changed on here? Sorry, any other good ones?
Yeah, so another good ones that I saw at least on here is like mostly around the collectibles.
No open collectibles, thank God.
No open collectibles anymore, and unopened ones got 15 days instead of 30. Also, like clearance items, there's no returns on it at all anymore. That's what it should always have been.
Yeah, like now, I don't understand.
I remember there were some people too that would come in and buy a bunch of shit, like clearance stuff, and then just return it.
Yeah,
so
hell no,
that would happen a lot.
Get the hell out of here. The dumbest thing that what we always talked about and what they should have done, because there were two ways to fix the people abusing used returns. Number one, 3 days. Because 3 days is enough time to know if you like something. If you buy it used, if you're buying something, you're probably interested in it in some way. You'll know if you like it within 3 days. 3 days also covers a weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's number one. Or the real answer, which always should have been the answer, is returns for store credit only. We should never ever have given cash back for used game returns. It's absurd. Because you're inviting people. We always used to call it was just a rental service. We weren't selling used games. We were renting.
Yeah. It is at a time now where there is no rental, but still.
But the key about a rental service is I still make $7.
Exactly.
At GameStop, I make $0.
Yeah.
So the return policy is one of the dumbest things that company's ever done.
It's bad.
Yeah, and just like they need to go harder. They need to say store credit only, no cash back.
Another one I saw that changed, and I think it's for the worse here, which I'm sure is another reason why this was brought to our attention by several people. Pre-owned hardware open went from no returns to 7-day return, 30-day defective exchange.
Stupid.
That's a mistake.
Yep.
That's going to come back to bite them.
Yep.
Accessories went from 30 days to 7. Smart.
Good.
It should be none, but PC peripherals, like they kind of changed some stuff there, it looks like. But yeah, I mean, it's still, you still have the same defective merchandise. They didn't change any of that stuff.
I do like that they finally put in for the online thing, like $8.99 deducted for shipping. Like, it's just like a straight up, you lose $8.99. Sorry. Because we always used to have to fight with people about that. It's like,
we did. Yeah.
well, I paid X, and well, what about shipping and stuff? It's like I can't refund you shipping. You need to call. You need to go through online. I'm like, sorry, man.
I guess the biggest moral of the story that I'd say is don't be a renter at GameStop.
People still will, because you can still get away with it, but the company just there's ways to fix it, and they just ignore it.
They don't care. So. Let's see. Next email we have comes from Andy from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. He says, I have to say I love that there's a podcast that I found that goes into depth on GameStop, and other than some various YouTube channels, you guys are very genuine and don't completely shit on GameStop, but you highlight the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've been listening for a while now, and I was curious to know more details of how rough some of the building conditions got for you. In past episodes, you've talked about a bad landlord and a roof leak, but is there more? Is it that hard to get your corporate leaders to notice and take action? Thanks. I'll just say that, yes, it is.
It's almost impossible.
But Dan, we can elaborate.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. So
you emailed that one guy like daily.
Oh my, that guy hated me. So to go over the roof leak again really quick is our landlord was awful. He was the guy who owned the building, or the trampoline place next to us.
And he ended up owning the whole building next.
Terrible. He
the very end of it
pretended he was a lawyer. I don't know if we ever knew if he actually was one, but he would throw that in everybody's face. Would talk to him. So he knew what he could and couldn't do. But him and his low rent buddies who had no idea what they were doing would go up on a roof and fuck around with everything all the time. And at one point, we developed a roof leak, and we had those I don't know how to explain it, but you would know them if you went into an office building or a store of any kind. But those fiber ceiling tiles, and it would drip down from somewhere around the AC unit up there, and it eventually got to a point where it would start staining the thing, and then it would be soft, and it would eventually break. Kyle was working one night where it actually broke.
It would
practically on your head,
like literally the next tile over from where my head was.
Yeah,
and we didn't catch it happening on video, but we definitely took.
I've got pictures and stuff still.
Yeah, literally, I was just standing there. It was just when
that shit breaks, it's gross, it's dusty. So it got to the point where I finally gave up, and I stopped putting panels in the ceiling. And every time anyone above my station would come in, they would yell at me for having a hole in the ceiling, and I would have to remind them every single time. I cannot put a tile up. There is a constant roof leak. If it rains in here, it will get everywhere. Well, you should call someone about that. I wanted, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to just scream in these people's faces. What the hell are you talking about? We had a facilities manager who every time the thing leaked, I would call him or I'd email him. And it eventually got to the point where I had the guy's number all but memorized. That guy hated me, would refuse to talk to me. He was always out of the office when I would call, because I would literally call, or I would send nasty emails where and they would just be roof's leaking again. I would send it every day. If the roof was leaking,
I think it was literally the same title, roof leaked again.
Roof leaked again. Roof leaked
27.
Again. So and what they would do, their idea was they would just send out an HVAC guy, to go up there and fuck around with the unit, and they did it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and every single time the HVAC guy would come down and say, "It's not the HVAC unit, it's the roof." So we had to fight for that constantly because we had a hole in the roof. Various birds would get into the store.
I was gonna say birds would get into the store,
and they would set the alarm off,
the overnight alarm,
and I would have to call the company and be like, "Turn it off. It's just a bird," and then I had to prop the door open to get the bird out. But the biggest fallout that ever happened from this stupid roof leak was he sent one of his idiots up to the roof. And by idiots, I mean guys who were not qualified to work on HVAC units because they were wearing
not at all
landscaping t-shirts.
It was a landscaper.
It was a landscaper. He went up and he cannibalized our HVAC unit by mistake because he was supposed to cannibalize the empty blood bank one
was there anymore.
To rebuild one of his precious trampoline HVAC units. And when he did it, he fucked it up. So I came into work one day, and
our AC just didn't work.
It was our heat didn't work because it was October or November. It was cold because I remember I wore sweatshirts to work. I walked in and it was 50 something degrees in the store, and I called our boss and said, "It is 50." I sent him a picture of the thing. I'm like, "It is 54 degrees in here. I am wearing a sweatshirt all day at work, and maybe a hat if it continues to get colder. And I'm letting you know this now, and I need you to take care of it." So blah, blah, blah. couldn't figure anything out. The solution becomes we're going to pay some company to rent industrial heaters. Yeah. So they had these big fucking industrial heater fan things rolled out, hooked up in the store. It looks like we were working in poverty.
You couldn't even hear.
They were huge.
They were so fucking
They were huge, loud, and at most it got the temperature in the store up to 60 something. Yeah. Because people would constantly open the door, and there's a hole in the ceiling, and it's just like. And then and we were only supposed to have them for like 2 days while it got fixed, and then it got fixed, but then we still had the heaters for like 2 more days, so I ended up paying $500 more out of my budget. This all came out of my budget, even though I didn't do it. Like the landlord did it. And then at the end of the year, we came in under profit because of this thing. And I had to have an argument with my boss about this is not me. Like, you cannot blame me for what is happening. And then long story short, the roof leak never got fixed, ever. Like, it's because if anybody who's worked anywhere knows
closed with that problem.
Yeah, it closed with that problem. Corporate does not care about you. They do not care. I could have walked into that store being 30 degrees and they would have been like, well, I guess you're going to freeze to death behind the counter then. Like, they don't care. They if it's not something that, if it's something they have to go above and beyond their normal job to fix, they will not do it.
Yeah, like, they do not.
All they had to do was tell this guy fix the fucking roof. And the guy was never going to do it anyway.
No,
because the guy would never agree to it. And then he was always an ass because he would threaten to pull our rent. And then we actually stopped paying rent for a very long time.
Yeah, and
that's what finally got our store closed, is because he got sick of us because we wouldn't pay because he wouldn't fix the roof. Yeah, and it was just this whole snowball of stuff.
That guy I think it was finally you guys paid him, because this was like after I left, because I left maybe a couple months before the store closed. After I left, wasn't it you guys finally paid him and he just didn't renew it?
They paid him like a month or something.
Yeah,
and we were on like a year-to-year lease, and then they came up to him and they said they wanted to stay for 3 more years, and he said no because he was too busy running his business into the ground and getting little children hurt, and and having multiple fire codes.
That's a true statement.
Yeah, that's all true.
Sad but true statement.
But yeah, it is almost impossible to get. Like, we had a pipe burst in the building next door.
Yep, we talked about that.
We had to take care of that. Like, I'm trying to think. But don't worry. If it was an LP issue I could get blamed for, they'd fix it right away and charge me money for it. Like, because they came in, they put an extra security bar on the back door. Because we really needed that. Yeah. We really needed that.
They because the way it was designed is they figured out like somebody could cut the bottom part of the door off and slide under to get in. So the solution was, why don't we have a bar on the top and the bottom? It's like, okay.
They cut a hole in the middle.
Like, exactly. It's like, so we should have 3 bars.
It just was dumb.
It just was stupid.
Complete waste. And like something to get angry about for no fucking reason.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but I mean, yeah. That landlord sucked. I had to deal with him too.
One of the worst people I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah, I can't disagree.
And I always feel better because Facebook posts reviews of his company.
You would read them constantly.
Validated me on what a piece of shit that guy was.
Exactly. So, all right. Next question comes to us from Chris from St. Louis, Missouri. He says, "Hey guys, I was curious with the recent news coming out that the Xbox execs wanted to show Fable, which would be the reboot. But the studio pushed back and said, when we are ready, do you think this game is actually coming sooner rather than later? It has been in development for a long time, and with this news, maybe this is a surprise 2023 release. What do you guys think?" It has. So I looked it up. It has been at least in development since 2019. Could be even a little bit earlier. 2019 is when you got that little teaser. So that was pre-pandemic. I mean, other than like some things we've seen, like they hired this writer or that writer, we don't really know much about this game.
Yeah.
Could it? I mean, is it possible this is a fall 2023 game? Absolutely. I think like it could be. Why show it if it's not like, maybe they're playing it close to the chest, doing like a Fallout type. We want a 6-month window to hype the game
it's
up.
Possible. It's also possible because the last time they hyped a game super hard, it was Halo, and then whoops.
Exactly. And I don't think Fable is going to be any kind of free-to-play microtransaction. I bet you it is your
I bet that's a full release
single-player game.
I bet that's a full release.
That's what they need.
It's also a Game Pass release, of course. But
Absolutely.
I think if they're doing it correctly, that game needs to be released when it is done. The fact that they
I
haven't shown anything yet makes me think it's a little bit farther than 23, just because that's closer than
yeah,
you think it is. Like, you know what I mean?
it is.
Like,
It's a
it's
year from now,
right.
basically.
But
Because if we were
could
talking
it?
2023, it'd be a holiday 2023.
Right.
It's not
If
coming out next spring.
could it? Sure. I would
Is it
probably
something they would surprise drop one day? No, they want to
no.
hype that game.
They want to push it, and I think that would
Yeah.
be that would definitely be like an E3 time reveal, especially with E3 coming back. That's a very
They want to
good.
hype that game. They want to push that game to get
That's a
more
very
Game
good.
Pass
That's our
subscriptions.
E3 focus is this game, because
Exactly.
there's no Halo stuff at E3. I mean, other
Yeah.
than Battle Pass or whatever. Gears seems far.
Gears seems much farther
State of Decay,
because
we just
they're
talked about, is
Unreal.
far.
Yeah, they're both Unreal 5.
They don't have much. Like Perfect Dark
Avowed.
Perfect Dark
they'll
may
talk
never
about
get
that.
talked about again. But Fable would be a very good focus of that show. We're like, that's how we close it, is here's 25 minutes of Fable, right?
Yeah.
So, but if that's the case, is it 6 months after that?
I think so. And that would put it at fall 2023.
Right. I think it all kind of depends on what we see E3 next year. If they don't talk about it, then it's nowhere. And that's 24. And regardless of when that game is ready, that is a fall release.
It has to be a holiday game.
It's not a May, June, whatever. It's
because the thing, like, they could put out Forza Motorsport in the spring if they want to, and that's not gonna. People will like that.
That sells to Forza people. Yes.
Yeah, because it's not a Horizon game; it's a regular Forza game, so it's not going to attract as much attention at this point.
So yeah, Fable, whenever it comes out, is a fall game. So it's either May, at best case scenario next year, probably 24.
I agree. Yeah. That's what I think. So let's see. Next question we have is Robert from Novi, Michigan. He says, "Hi guys, with the recent release of The Last of Us Part 1 and being an unnecessary remake," we're going to talk about that in another email. What do you guys think of the 360? What do you guys think from the 360 PS3 era would be deserving of a remake or a remaster? So I know, Dan, you wrote some stuff in here.
I wrote a couple in. Just stuff.
The one that you put on there that I would 110% agree with is Dead Rising 1.
Right.
I would love to see a ground up remake of that game.
We kind of talked about it.
Still my favorite. Yeah, we talked about it in the past.
Where it's either remake the first one now or
make a new one.
Make a new one called Dead Rising and just start over. I wouldn't be put down if it was a remaster. Just something where it's like we're taking advantage of current systems. Maybe that's when it finally gets put on PlayStation 2 and like everybody just makes money off of it, right?
For sure.
So there's that. One I've talked about to Kyle for a long time is I know people don't want it, but I'd really like to have the Final Fantasy 13 like trilogy released as a package,
like where I get all three of them.
Where I get all three of them in one. And it does need to be remade. I don't want a remake. I want a remaster where everything's cleaned up, load times are down, maybe some quality of life improvements, because the first game especially could use some of that.
Sure.
But I think all three of those like on a disc would be good, because those are PS3 games. There's not another way to play them other than through like the awful stream shit or on Game Pass. On Game Pass,
they're all gone on Game Pass, but if you have
the first one
you can play them.
The first one is. The other two are going away, but it's still like to have all three of them as like
would be
a
cool.
package would be good. And then last one, I was just trying to think of anything else that would like make sense. Like it's been a long time since an Infamous game came out.
Yeah,
and I think if you wanted to make a new one, like I like Second Son. I thought the game's fine. It plays well, but I think if you redid the first one. Like, cause remember when they made Infamous 1, they were like Cole McGrath, like he's gonna be like the new hot PlayStation character. You know what I mean? Like that was a big push. And then they made 2 and it wasn't as good. I liked 1 better, but I think if you remade 1 now, that game could be awesome on PS5.
It could.
Think of like the lightning effects and like just what that game could be, and traversal. Like, they've only gotten better since they've made that game. They made Second Son and then they made Sunset, and like all this stuff is is better. So like Infamous remake,
Yeah,
I'd be down for that.
I'd be into that. Yeah, it definitely makes sense because again, too, like when Infamous One came out, that was at kind of a time where not a lot of people, at least in North America, had a PS3
Right.
because of the price. So
Yeah.
a lot of people missed that game.
But I just think, you know, 2 generations later, imagine what that game could be like now.
Absolutely. No, I get behind you on that. Mine are a little more silly, I guess. One of them I thought of, even though we just we just got a sequel to this franchise, which I thought was okay, but it didn't hit for a lot of people. But the first Crackdown, or do a new Crackdown.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think that franchise lost everything with 3. Unfortunately,
someone who
3 was
Crackdown,
not a bad game. It just was Crackdown.
3 made me realize that we probably don't need another one.
Yeah. The other one for me that I would personally be into because it's from that era, but this is a very me thing, would be the first Lords of Shadow.
Sure.
Been long enough. I would like a ground up like remake of that, especially in an era where you have the transition of what God of War was to what it is now. I'd like to see that with Lords of Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be cool. Lords of Shadow 1, not 2. Don't remake 2. That's not a great.
Well, it's like Infamous. I don't need you to make the second one. The first one's fine.
First one's fine. So those are kind of my, just like, I briefly looked through my shelf before we were recording.
That's what I was kind of doing too. Was looking through my catalog of stuff.
Exactly. The only other one I thought of, and this would be a PS3. I don't necessarily think it'd be a remake, but just to bring this franchise back or the game back. 3D Game Heroes.
Yeah, when you said that, I was thinking, like, I wonder if he's gonna say that. That game is really fun. It's at its core, it's a Zelda ripoff, but it's a good one.
I don't think it needs like a remake, just a new one.
No, clean it up. Fine. Yeah, just clean it up. Yeah. Make a new one. It's a Zelda ripoff, but
that's fine. It doesn't. That's exactly. It was exactly what it needed to be, and it was a unique game at the time it came out. I think there's been a lot of Zelda-like games now, but in the era it came out, there was not.
Well, and that was an era where, like, I think a lot of people tried to make those kind of games and would just fail constantly.
Yeah.
And that game actually had its own art style and it was fun and, like, it's a good game.
All right, so the next question we have comes from Casey from Dayton, Ohio. He says, "Hey guys, really enjoyed the last episode when you talked about fakes and counterfeit games. I'd love to know what's the best you've come across, and did you ever have situations where you'd have to give a customer a trade game back or deny it due to it being fake?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
In those cases, it was always kind of an awkward situation, but you'd kind of just say, like, "Hey, you know what, man? Unfortunately, we can't take this one. It's actually not." You'd either say, like, "It's actually not real," or, you know, something along those effects. And 99% of the time they go, "Oh, what, really?" Like, either they would not know or they just.
Yeah. The key was always, I was just very blunt about it. I would just, or like they'd bring a DS game and I would point it out.
Is the most common.
I would point it out to them so that they knew that I knew what I was looking at, where I'd be like, yeah, see these 4 letters here have to match these 4 letters here. And they don't. So I actually can't take this game. And I would always, like, you know, you don't know if they know. Sometimes, obviously, some of them did, but I would say it in kind of like a kind of accusing them form, where I'd be like, I would be like, yeah, so someone probably swapped a label on it or something like that and give it to them back.
That's a good way. Yeah.
So yeah, like you would do it with DS was obviously most common. It didn't happen very often with disc games. I can't remember one at GameStop where that ever happened.
I mean, we could talk about the one I got from Whatnot, but we have before. Yeah. But that's not really. That wasn't really what I call a good counterfeit.
No, yeah, and then Game Boy Advance stuff, I would have to do that a couple times just because Pokemon games wouldn't look right, or they wouldn't the color, because like Pokemon
usually
Red,
the color.
Yeah, it's not the right red. It's something like that. The best one I could ever give an example of, and I'm actually really upset because I wish I could have found a way to keep it. I would have it right now. Is at Game Crazy way back in the day. I wasn't there when it happened, but somebody traded in Pokemon Emerald 2 is literally what the label said on it. And I looked at it and somebody else take it in. I looked at it, I said, what the hell is this?
It's good.
And because they just took it back as Pokemon Emerald. And so I put it in this. I was like, I got to see what this is. And so I grabbed the Game Boy and I threw it in there and I started playing it. And it was some weird side scrolling thing with like sprites replaced and shit.
Totally not. Awful. Yeah.
And I was just like, I should have found a way to keep it, but you know, it ended up getting like defected out and we had to send it somewhere. But it literally just said Pokemon Emerald 2 on the label.
That's good.
And it was like a leaf green colored card. That's how I knew it was fake in the beginning. But When I looked at the label again, I was like, shit. But yeah, I wish that guy would have been there when I traded him. I would have laughed at him. I'm like, there is no Pokemon Emerald 2, sir.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, that's again always good. But yeah, like even for me, I say most common be DS games. Like I don't think I ever saw it for disc games at GameStop.
No, there were fake Dreamcast games at Game Crazy with like the paper label print I've talked about before.
That was kind of like the last era you would really see that for. You didn't really see that with 360 games and forward.
And I never saw Switch games.
Which is surprising because Switch games are cartridge.
And during the time when we took Retro back when you and I were working there, nobody really tried to trade in fake.
No, I certainly purchased fake games, but I never got anybody who tried.
Well, nobody ever brought them to us because I would have been able to tell. But yeah, it never happened. Or I would DS games. I turned people down because they're like, "It's a European copy. We can't take that." Well, it works on my DS. I understand. It's a European copy. We can't take that.
Yeah, that would happen too.
Yeah.
So. All right, now this is one of the news stories. This was actually probably the biggest news story of the week as we keep chronicling like what I like to call like, I don't know, kind of like a minor fall of Sony right now. Colin from Norfolk, Virginia says, "Hey guys, I was wondering what your thoughts are on the whole Microsoft Activision deal and Sony throwing a fit about Call of Duty. It seems like every day there's more fuel to this fire. Do you think this will jeopardize the deal, or is Sony just being a sore loser? Personally, I would be surprised if Sony is ever locked out of having Call of Duty on their platform. Thanks." And this kind of goes back to which the crazy part about this, I did a video on my YouTube channel about this as well, because it got big enough that I felt it needed comment.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like Phil Spencer came out and this was a while ago, and then he reaffirmed it like September 1st that they had sat down with Sony and outlined extending whatever that deal was for another 3 years.
Right.
Nobody has ever publicly said when that original deal ends. There's nobody on either side has said like, oh, the original deal ends this time. Like my assumption and everybody's assumption is it's probably this year, because if it was any longer,
with the way
I don't think there'd be this sense of urgency from Sony. But Jim Ryan, who's kind of becoming Sony's punching bag.
Dude, it's like he's having a breakdown or something.
Something. He literally put out a statement where he name dropped Phil Spencer in the statement, which I thought was ridiculous because you don't see this in modern day anymore. Yeah, like this is like 90s Nintendo Genesis.
Bold move for the system sales leader to start attacking the guy who is in third place.
The sales leader who just announced a price increase of their system
is attacking the person who's in last.
Basically crying about the fact that he thinks the deal is inadequate because they're only getting 3 more years to have Call of Duty potentially on the system, where Microsoft has never said they are ending it after that 3 years.
No.
But their whole thing is they're going to reevaluate.
It's probably
at the end of that 3 years. Which, like, let's be honest. When Microsoft bought Minecraft, did they stop putting Minecraft on other platforms? They put it out on more platforms.
Yes.
Why would you do the same thing to Call of Duty?
They're not going to. Like, it doesn't benefit them in any way because they're already winning by making it a part of Game Pass.
Exactly.
So why not get Sony sales?
Exactly.
I don't understand. Because, like they wouldn't do that.
Is that going to be a tide churner for some people when they walk into a store and see, hey, I have both these systems. I can pay $70 because it'll be $70 for Call of Duty, or I can just pay $15 and play it on Game Pass
for a month,
and also have access to 200 other games. And that's kind of like the bigger argument here. But like, I just thought it was like just wild that he not only like complained about it, but name dropped Phil Spencer. Like Phil Spencer did some terrible thing, by keeping this deal extended longer. So it just doesn't make sense.
The Activision stuff is going to be the kind of thing where they're not going to take COD away. They're not going to take Overwatch away. I don't even
think they'll take Diablo away.
They're not going to take Diablo away. Right. Anything major is not going to be taken away. It's going to be put on Game Pass, and then like sold on console. That's the same thing they're going to do with Bethesda. It's crazy to me that he's up in arms about COD. COD is going to ruin us if they do this. They already bought Fallout, Skyrim, and like Doom. Like they bought all of that stuff.
Yeah.
COD is the thing. This is the one game you're concerned about.
Well, and the other problem I have with it is it's kind of hypocritical too, because like, look at what Sony has done with Final Fantasy. Look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, which was supposed to come to the Xbox.
I don't know if it ever will at this point.
And they quietly just kind of reaffirmed, like, no, we're not probably going to be doing that. Like, and now this new, the next iteration or whatever, part 2, is only on PS5.
Right. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, they had the COD benefit for years, where if they're arguing that like this is going to be what turns people to Xbox, like, you did it. You told people buy it here and you'll get Nuketown, and you won't get it on Xbox for a month or whatever. Like, you already played the game. So now that you're
with Destiny as well. So.
Right. So now that you've lost the game, you're upset. I get that.
Exactly.
I get that you're pissed, but like, buy Activision first. Obviously, Activision was willing to sell. He's losing his mind. Like,
it's also like Call of Duty isn't going to be a game breaker.
I don't think it is anymore. Is it? It was dying when we left.
Yeah. No, like I mean, like I think Modern Warfare Remake was obviously there's still successful games, but they don't have the draw that they once did either.
No,
like it definitely has diminished.
Right, and if the real moneymaker of this whole thing is Warzone,
yeah,
they're not taking that off of PlayStation.
They're putting out a new version of that,
right,
which will be on both systems in November. So
it's Microsoft. There's nothing to gain on Microsoft's part from not putting it on a PlayStation. Like,
it just seems like he's crying for no reason. Like, that's the way it looks. Right. Like, I get it, but like they're never going to take this shit away.
But again, this is the one you're concerned about. I would be more concerned about Fallout and Skyrim as a package.
Yeah.
Like, or
we already know Starfield's not coming anywhere other than Xbox or PC.
So, and you don't care about that? Like, that's the game people have been talking about for 5 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
Elder Scrolls, like, now we're at a point where maybe Elder Scrolls 6 isn't on PlayStation anymore just because this guy is pushing.
Well, also, we kind of know, like, Bethesda doesn't really like working with PlayStation hardware.
No, they don't.
As we've seen in the past.
They had a lot of problems in the past.
They have a lot of problems in the past. So it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't put out Elder Scrolls 6 on that system. But, like, I mean, now that's just more fuel for them to go, why would we?
Yeah, I think you're only making your options for that worse. So,
yeah. So like I would at this point I wouldn't cry about anything that could potentially be taken away, but like of those things, Call of Duty's not the thing that's going to.
No, and like, and the whole point of this is now people are like, "Do you think this Activision thing will go through?" Yes, I do. Like, yeah. I understand where people are coming from with like, well, it shouldn't be able to go through because of this, that, and this. It's like, it's not a monopoly, man. It's just a company that makes video games.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you right now, Microsoft is not buying Activision to get a hold of Call of Duty.
No. Not at all.
You know what money they want from Activision? They want that sweet Candy Crush money. That's what they want. And they want,
that makes a lot of money.
Overwatch money. And they want all the others, Diablo money. Mm-hmm. The Call of Duty money, sure, they want it, but like, it's not the end all be all. Why they're buying it is to screw Sony. No.
So it's just a weird.
What are you
situation.
Talking about?
I just. But it's weird. Like the thing is, like, it's just been every week. It seems like it's been another thing with Sony and specifically Jim Ryan, and it's just been snowballing. It's like, what's the next week big topic going to be? What is this guy going to do now? Like, so I don't know. It's just been absurd. But we had a couple emails about it. That was the one that I pulled. So, but I mean, the biggest answer is no. I would be shocked if that game went.
It would be insane. Xbox, it would be insane if Call of Duty was not on PlayStation at some point.
Exactly. So, all right. Our final email. This is actually the most recent email. Comes to us from Brian from Long Island, New York. This was a lengthy email, and I can speak to it.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I've been listening to the podcast for several episodes now. Love the podcast. My question is regarding the recently released Last of Us remake. Why put all the effort into such a remake that seems highly unnecessary when there are a ton of other games out there that deserve this much more? Week 1 sales, at least in the UK, were extremely low, and we won't know the MPD until early October, so the numbers in North America.
Right.
But I imagine it doesn't hit that. Do you think that it's people that already played the game several times over, like you said, forget it? Or do you think that there's a bit of a sour taste post Last of Us 2, which while critics loved it, a majority of the fan base did not? personally, I'm passing on it. For me, it's a been there, done that. But I was just curious what you guys all thought about it. So, I can speak to The Last of Us. I can speak to The Last of Us Part 2, and I can speak to this whole situation. I mean, my thing about The Last of Us remake, my first problem with it shouldn't be $70. It really shouldn't. Like there's no justification.
That's the main problem.
Like, I don't care how many accessibility options you put into it. Like, nobody's discrediting that stuff. Nobody's saying that stuff isn't important. But does that equal $70? I don't think so. Because even with those, I think the audience that has played The Last of Us has already played it. There are people out there that have not played it. And for those people that have never played it, yeah, that's probably the version to play. But maybe wait until it's not $70.
Or go buy the PS4 version, which is like $10. Or if you are a Plus member, you already have.
Exactly. And like, I can't imagine it look like, even from watching videos like Digital Foundry and stuff, does it look better? Sure. Is it that much better? No. So at least from what I've seen. So is it from, were the sales at least in the UK low because of post Last of Us 2? I don't know. Like, Last of Us Part 2, and I've talked about it at length. A lot of my friends are tired of me talking about it because I have such a I don't hate the game, but it's like the whole point of The Last of Us as a series to me is it is a story first game, mechanics second. The mechanics of Last of Us 2, it's one of the most mechanically sound games I've ever played. One of the best. The story is fucking atrocious. like it is. There is nonsensical character developments in that game. When you get to the end of the game, and this is without spoiling it, the end of the game is one of the biggest, like, what the fuck was the point of this entire 25 hour? And it's like 25 hours. What was the point of it? Because there's a chance to do something at the end of the game, which was the whole point of the story of the game. And they just go, nah, we're not going to do that. And it's one of those, like, why? What was the point of the whole game? I said before it came out, when they announced it, I didn't need a Last of Us 2. I think
we talked about that.
Is a game that was perfect as can be in terms of story, beginning, middle, end. It was a solid story.
I didn't need a sequel to that game. I would have liked another game in the universe, but it did not have to have anything to do with what I had already seen. Yes. Yeah.
And the fact too is then I mean, at this point, there's no way getting around this. I'm sure you even know the big chuckle of Last of Us 2 is you don't play. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The big chuckle of the game, you don't play as Ellie through the whole game. It's like maybe 30% of that game you play as Ellie. The other 70% you play as another character. The problem is, like, this is a character that was written after the first game came out. You didn't even know this character existed in the first game. Okay. They might try to tell you now, like, oh, there were little hints. No. This character wasn't even in someone's mind until they decided to make a sequel. And they spend the entire fucking game making you play as this character who already is not very likable due to what you do at the beginning of the game.
Right.
And they try to justify you actually caring about this person and their little faction and what they do. The problem is I don't fucking care about any of them. So like, I'm just playing through this game going, I just want to get back to the part where I'm playing as Ellie, because at least I give a fuck about that. I don't give a shit about the rest of it. So, and it's a whole huge thing with that game. And that was my problem at the end when I was sitting down, I was thinking about reviewing. I'm like, in terms of mechanics, in terms of gunplay, in terms of how enemies react, it's a 10 out of 10. It's one of the most mechanically sound games I've ever played.
For sure.
But the story is the most important thing about it, and that is lackluster. So I just... and it was thinking... The other thing I was thinking about today, too, because I know I'm going to get shit on for this. I know somebody's going to email this in the next time. You know, I say all this, and I go off this, and I say, I'm not going to play Last of Us Part 1. And I'm not. I don't give a shit about it.
Yeah, I don't care.
At the end of the day, I've already played the game.
I played it twice.
But I know somebody's going to say, yeah, but, in a couple months, you sure as fuck are going to play Resident Evil 4 Remake. And yes, I am going to play Resident Evil 4
Remake. That's a different game.
And here's the argument I'd make. Well, the Resident Evil 4 has been re-released like 1,800 fucking times. This is at least different. It's been 20 years, almost, since somebody's actually
that's an actual remake, though. Like, this Last of Us 1. It's not a remake. It's a remaster. It's a remaster of a game that has already been remastered.
Exactly.
And it's a remaster of a game that's only been remastered. That is $70. Like, what this says to me, releasing this game in its current state for $70 is that this company and Sony by association thinks so fucking highly of themselves. They can just do whatever they want. They don't care. Like, remember, these are the people that make Uncharted and just keep cranking this stuff out. They they remastered this stuff. I love Uncharted. I love Uncharted. 4. 4 is great.
4 was my favorite one.
Right. It's really good. But again, 4 is another game where clearly they had not thought of this character in throughout the entire rest of this thing and shoehorn in the brother. Fine, whatever. But don't pretend like he existed through the other 3 games.
Exactly.
And just they just think so incredibly highly of themselves that they feel like they can do no wrong. I don't who possibly even threw out this idea of obviously if the way they did this, they had to have been talking about it while they were making Last of Us 2. They had to have been like, what if we just remake it again for PS5 when it comes out?
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody was like, yeah, we could do that. Let's just do that. You're going to waste time doing this and making me the multiplayer only game that you're going to sell to me separately. And not just work on something else.
I don't know if that's going to be sold or if that's going to be part of their free-to-play initiative they've been talking about.
I don't know, man. If this is $70, I bet you they're selling me the other thing.
For $70?
I don't
think so. I don't think so. I don't think they do that. I really don't think they do that because they
but you're doing all this and not just making something else. You couldn't have you know what's sad is you did this to me when what you could have done is you could have remade Uncharted 1. And I think people would have been
accepted that more.
I would have accepted it because that actually hasn't been redone. And that game, as someone who just tried to play it again in the collection, that game needs to be fixed.
It needs to be fixed. Grenade throwing in that game.
Just the game needs to be fixed. It's broken. And compared to the other ones, it's bad. It's a bad game. And it was a bad game at the time it came out, but it got kind of.
It had a great story. And that was kind of
so. But you can't tell me that if you had made that and made that a PS5 Uncharted remake, I don't think anybody would have complained.
I don't think anybody would have complained. The other way I see this going downward, I don't think anybody complained, and maybe what would have been a smarter route to go, instead of put this out, I mean, you could still put this out as a product people can buy. This should have been a day one release on the PlayStation Plus Premium.
We talked about that a lot.
Imagine selling that as a you know what? You can just play this game on this service.
Right.
Here it is.
It's what it should have been. And we've talked about that multiple times. Yeah.
What's the barrier of entry there? It's a game that's already been released 2 times over.
Right.
So what
something you arguably don't have to sell for $70 again.
Exactly. So I don't know.
There were other things they could have done. There's other ways they could have gone about this. Or honestly, man, if it was $40, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. $40, sure.
The only other reason I think this product does exist and why they pushed it is because that show is next year.
Oh, for sure. That's part of it.
Audience that will part watch
of it
that show.
Is that part of it is well, now we've made a game for PS5, so we know what we're doing. Yeah, and that, there's that aspect of it too. There's bits and pieces of it that explain it, but it's unnecessary.
Just updated the
Uncharted
PS4 remakes. They updated The Last of Us 2 for PS5.
Right.
That actually has a free PS5 upgrade.
But Uncharted 1 would have been a much better use of everyone's time.
It would have been a much better. Or go back further in the Naughty Dog line. How about a new they were the people who made Jak and Daxter, right? How about a remake of that?
Just remake it. Remake the entire back catalog.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but this is a mistake. And
it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Nobody even to bring up the Resident Evil comparison again, I still say as someone who's enjoyed the 2 and the 3 remake, I don't need a remake of 4, but the most, it doesn't, I will play it, but I really don't.
Nobody needed it. Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, no, to answer your question, I've thought about it extensively. I actually listened to, I'm not going to name the podcast, but I listened to a predominant PlayStation podcast because it's fun to hear the other side. I like to tap into both sides of things. Yeah. And honestly, right now it's more fun to listen to a PlayStation podcast because they have things to talk about. Microsoft, they don't really. But I had to scoff when the head person of that mentioned, this is one of the big releases of the fall. I'm like, how is this a big release of the fall?
It's not.
Like, it's not.
It's a big
like,
release of the fall.
You could be the biggest PlayStation fan in the world, but like even then, this is a re-release of a re-release that they remastered.
Right. And so, I thought the last remaster was enough.
I think your one and only big release this fall as an exclusive is God of War.
Right, and that's a big one. Like that's the biggest game coming out this fall.
Huge game. So, and it's a game that I don't need to see any other footage on. No. I know it'll be good, and I know I'll enjoy it.
Yep.
So, I don't know. So, but that is to answer your question. I think we've talked enough about Last of Us. Mm-hmm. So, as always, we love all the emails you guys send us. Please send them to podcast572@gmail.com.
Yes.
I will say, even though they don't always make that on here because there's a lot of duplicates, I do read them all.
Yes.
So just to let
Keep
you know,
sending them. We love the fact that you guys send stuff in and interact with us. We enjoy it.
Exactly. We especially enjoy the GameStop stuff. So if there's any other crazy GameStop shit that happens in the next 2 weeks,
anything about it. If you want to complain about your GameStop, please do. If you want to tell us a good story about your GameStop,
don't name names. If you're a current employee, don't name names. But if you want to bitch about anything, at your current GameStop, please do.
Yeah,
we're here to hear it.
And just as I'm not normally one who likes self-promotion or any of that kind of stuff because we just really do this for fun. But if you like the show and other people who might like the show, if you share it with them, we would appreciate it. But by no means are we like telling you to do it or asking. Like we don't.
No.
I
mentioned on here, like I have my YouTube channel, Marble Gallery. I also have been posting since the episode with Ryan. I do post episodes there. Mm-hmm. So, and I have gotten people that watch my YouTube channel already to comment and send emails in. So if you're somebody that listens to it there, because it's just audio form there, I don't post the video at all. Please, message us, email us, from that as well. We'll take questions from anywhere.
Yeah.
So we don't care. So, but that's about as far as we go with any kind of promotion.
Share the show if you like the show. I don't want to be the person that smash that like button, but
send us your game
recommendations.
Ideas. Recommendations. I can think of the word. Yeah. Send us your game recommendations too, because we enjoy reading those as well. Especially for me, like if you find some weird horror game, I've either probably heard of it or I want to play it. So,
and I really like
bonus
weird
points
RPGs.
If you find something that I've never heard of. So
that would be good. Yeah,
it would be good. So, anyways, and I'm sure, and Matt will be back with us next time we record, but we will go ahead and call it here. So, as always, thank you for listening, and we will catch you all in another 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone.